Con su cámara, Jürgen Schadeberg ha enfocado a las personas en los momentos más significativos de la segunda mitad del siglo XX en Sudáfrica, aquellos que marcaron el devenir del continente y de sus gentes. Este fotógrafo, nacido en Berlín el 18 de marzo de 1931, emigró a Johannesburgo en los años 50. Allí trabajó para la revista Drum, donde a través de sus fotografías reflejó la vida y la lucha durante el apartheid, lo que le ha valido el ser conocido como el padre de la fotografía sudafricana.
Well, it is a bit uncomfortable. However, there's some truth in it. When I arrived in South Africa in 1950, I was astonished. There were no documentary photo magazines. There were very few photographers, and they used very old-fashioned large cameras, speed graphic with big flash guns and so on. Whereas in the early 20s, the Leica was invented, which was a very small camera, and in Berlin was the Berliner Illustrator, and in Munich was the Münchner Illustrator, which were documentary illustrated paper, which were closed down by Hitler and closed them down in the mid-30s. And then from there, it went to most of the photographers went to England, and they went to New York. In England, they started Picture Post, which became the most important visual communication for the Battle of Britain. And then there was Life magazine in America, and there was Look magazine, there was Saturday Evening Post, there was Holiday. Most of they were waiting, and they said in New York they were just waiting for the photographers to come from Berlin and from Munich, because they had to escape from Hitler, and they worked for the papers there. And then I come to South Africa, and there's nothing like it. There's no history and so on. So I was very shocked. And also when I then started working for an Africa magazine, which was for black population only, there were no what you might call black photographers. Black people Africans had no experience or had no ability or finance to study photography. And that's one of the reasons. So I started teaching people photography, and I started battling to go from the big old-fashioned cameras to small miniature cameras, what they used to call miniature cameras.
Sus instantáneas también han inmortalizado el ambiente y las figuras del jazz, en blanco y negro y a veces en color, pero en unas y otras siempre acompañado de su Leica.
Well, I usually use Leica cameras, which are the 35mm Leica, but I have also used other cameras. Different cameras have a different purpose, have a different. It's like your film cameras. You use different film, or you use different lenses for different cameras, and so on. So, but generally speaking, I'm a Leica photographer. Well, I have done a lot of projects recently in color and digital. However, everybody insists that I should go on doing black and white because they like black and white more. And also there are collectors, and one has to make a living and sometimes sell the pictures, and they prefer silver prints. So I have to still occasionally and quite often take black and white pictures.
Su extensa obra visual arranca en 1942, con tan solo 11 años.
Well, my first photograph I did when I was 11 years old in 1942, in Berlin in an air raid shelter. And there were people in the air raid shelter. This was when the bombing started, the beginning of in 42. And we all went into the shelter in the house down below in the cellar, and it was reinforced. And there was a whole community of the house, of the building, the apartment building. And they had a case of beers, and they had a piano accordion, and they sang and played the piano accordion. You know the piano accordion? And I had my first bottle of beer then.
Tras más de 60 años fotografiando, Jürgen Schadeberg atesora miles de negativos, pero hay uno que destaca. Es el que plasma la mirada perdida de Nelson Mandela, a quien conoció en la década de los 50 en Sudáfrica. Ambos luchaban contra el apartheid. En 1964, Schadeberg tuvo que abandonar el país y Mandela fue detenido. Tras su liberación, Jürgen y el entonces futuro presidente de Sudáfrica volvieron a encontrarse. El momento fue captado por el propio fotógrafo, una imagen cuyo valor perdura en el tiempo.
It's difficult, but I think the one that is most popular, and therefore it's also perhaps the favorite one of mine, is of Nelson Mandela in his prison cell in 1994, when he returned to the prison cell to revisit it after he left. He came out of prison in 1990, and this was 4 years later. This was shortly before he became president of South Africa. Well, I think that Nelson Mandela was the person that avoided at the late 80s, beginning of the 1990s, helped to avoid that there would bloodshed in South Africa. There would be a bloody revolution. He was the one that came out of prison and supported and led the South African nation into a new democratic society. And I think that's the most important thing he's done. And I hope that he will be remembered for his what he's done for South Africa.
Instalado en Londres durante las décadas de los 60 y 70, Jürgen Schadeberg ejerció como freelance para diversas revistas de prestigio de Europa y América, donde fue profesor y comisario de importantes exposiciones antes de regresar a Sudáfrica. Schadeberg también ha editado y publicado varios libros, y ha recibido premios como el Infinity, un galardón con el que el Centro Internacional de Fotografía quiso reconocer la trayectoria de este fotógrafo documental o fotoperiodista, pues así prefiere autodenominarse quien se ha convertido en maestro de fotógrafos gracias a instantáneas con las que graba el pasado.
What do I show? I show what is in front of me. I'm interested in people and in life, in encounters, in societies. I call myself a documentary photography. A photograph is a document. It's not a painting. It's a document of a particular specific moment in time, and it is history. And I call myself a documentary photographer or a photojournalist.
En la actualidad, Schadeberg reside en la Drova, cerca de Gandia. Aquí recibió la noticia de su nombramiento como doctor honoris causa por la Universitat Politècnica de València, a propuesta del campus de la ciudad ducal, centro en el que ha impartido charlas y organizado exposiciones, y con el que espera seguir colaborando.
Well, I think I'm very honored, and I'm even more honored because it comes from Spain. Because I love Spain. I think they're wonderful people, and it's a wonderful country. As I said, I'm terribly honored about this. I couldn't believe it. And I'm settling now in Spain. I'm going to live here, and I'm learning Spanish. So, and I'm going to do a lot of work here in Spain.
El próximo proyecto, una nueva exposición fotográfica.